in to the hottest station on the planet.
Resistance is futile. The revolution has begun.
You're listening to Rebelpreneur Radio, helping you break the rules and build the business you need for the life you want. And now, broadcasting his pirate signal
from somewhere beyond the status quo,
here's your host, best-selling author, marketing and media strategist, Ralph Brogden.
Hello and welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio, the show that helps you build the business you need so you can live the life you want. I'm Ralph Brogden. How would you like to start over and get over all the things that held you back and kept you from succeeding? All the things in your past that need to be healed. I have a guest today that is going to help you do that. She is known as the Phoenix. Angie K. Millgate is the leader of the Epic Sensitives movement. She is a profoundly perceptive energy healer who supports those who are ready and willing to release themselves from victimhood. Angie Millgate, welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio.
Wow, thank you for having me, Ralph. It's an honor to be here.
It's a real awesome privilege to have you. So you have nearly 20 years of training and experience as a healer and a certified life coach. You have worked with thousands of people to help them heal from childhood sexual abuse, generational abuse, domestic violence, meth addiction, and all kinds of human ailments. You are a speaker and a facilitator. Tell us a little bit more about who you are, but how did you get started doing this? Where did you learn this? Tell us how you got to this point.
That is one of my favorite questions. People are often asking me, why do you do what you do, and how did you do this? How did you even get here? And as a child, my entire life, I've been able to see, feel, and hear things that other humans around me were not picking up on. And as a small child, that scared the people around me. Like, the adults wanted me to be quiet. They wanted me to stop wiggling. I got the message that I was too loud. I asked too many questions. I wiggled too much. And my friends were terrified of me because I was telling them all the things I was seeing and feeling and hearing, and they weren't seeing or feeling or hearing them. And they called me.
That made you really popular, didn't it?
Yes. They called me a witch. And in my upbringing, a witch was synonymous with evil, and I was going to be forever cast out. And as a child, you know, children have a very innate survival instinct. And as most epic sensitives do, when we receive the message that we're completely broken and flawed, which was how I was receiving all of the feedback I was getting as a child, we choose to turn off our gifts, or we choose to say, no, that's not what I do. And no, I'm normal. And so I attempted to become normal like the other humans around me, and had a very lonely childhood, and didn't really understand what was going on around me because I was seeing and feeling all of these things, but nobody else was. And so therefore I really thought at a very early age, I was going completely wacko. I had lost my mind. I needed to be put in a mental institution. And I don't say that lightly, because I am aware that there are a lot of epic sensitives that feel like they literally don't belong here. And so throughout my life, I've chosen all of these different interactions with other humans that have been abusive. So I've had the experience of living through abuse on so many different levels. And that was actually what my first book is about, is my process of coming out of religious repression and healing from domestic violence, and actually having no idea how I ended up in a marriage that had domestic violence in it, because I came from a very gentle, sheltered life as a child. But then I choose into a marriage that was riddled with violence. So for me, I became very passionate about, especially after my daughter was born, I became very passionate about what is this abuse that is on this planet at such a high level. I mean, it's everywhere. And why are humans willing to live with it? And why are we functioning through abuse? There has to be a better way. And so that is how I started getting curious about, who am I really? Why am I really here? And how can I live as an epic sensitive myself that has the ability to feel things around the globe? How can I live with that level of sensitivity and live without abuse? What can I do about that?
And for our listeners, I should probably ask you to explain to us, since you are the leader of the Epic Sensitives movement, that EPIC is an acronym. Tell our listeners what EPIC stands for.
Yes, I love this. Epic, it originally meant a very long poem, like Homer's Iliad. And so it's come to mean over the years grand and impressive. And it's often paired with words like fail. Like that's one of the urban dictionaries, epic fail. So it means you just really crashed and burned on that one.
In a huge way.
Exactly. Like there's no recovering from that one. So in my work, when I started looking at the people that I attract and the people that I work with, I was checking in. I talk a lot in terms of spirit guides and them. I talk a lot in terms of working with universal energies and being guided by a higher power. And so I was trying to get clear on what my target audience was. And I've known for 20 years that I work with sensitive people that are feeling what's going on and seeing and hearing it and on a grand scale. And I was walking through my place of employment and I heard this voice say to me, your people are epic. and me in my sarcastic way spoke back to my spirit guide and said, yeah, I know. Aren't they so cool? And I could feel this energy of his eyes rolling like, oh, geez, Angie, seriously? And he said, stop and look at the word. And I stopped and looked at the word, and it was like epic. Yeah, it means grand and impressive. And he said, no, really look at the word. And what I saw was it's EPIC, and it stands for empaths, psychics, intuitives, and creatives. And as soon as I saw that, and every time I share that story, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, those are my people. They are the visionaries. They are the people that are moving mountains and changing this world because of the visions they have and the things that they feel and their capacity to create change on this planet. So epic sensitives are, yes, grand and impressive, but they're also empaths, psychics, intuitives, and creatives.
Very neat. Very neat. And thanks for explaining that, because that's a lot to kind of pack into that word there. It's just a little 4-letter word, and there's so much in there that you can unpack. Well, tell us how you take that and how you apply it to help the people that you help. What do you do for them, and who do you work with?
Well, the really fun thing about me is I'm a woman that wears many hats. I am in every area of an epic. I'm like at 100% level in every one of those areas, and I flow in between them. My creative self demands that I have 100 projects going at once, or else I get incredibly bored and do nothing. So I have had the ability to master many skills and practices and have done so much education throughout my life to feed that creative side of me. So I am this blend of mundane and magical, and I am a blend of corporate America and woo-woo energy healer voodoo magic stuff. So I'm able to work with, when I was working in corporate America, I was always in the C-level management, working with the C-level execs, the CFOs, the CIOs, the CEOs, the board presidents. That was where I landed. And it was because I have the ability, the people that are in those positions, the CEOs especially, my experience has been they are massive visionaries. And that's why they're at C-level management and in the executive position, because they have these grand visions. And my ability to read energy and understand the language of anyone that's in front of me gives me the power to interpret what they need before they know they need it, and then work as a support for them to provide what they need. So I do that. I did that in corporate America. I do that for entrepreneurs now. I'm also an intuitive graphic designer. So when I'm doing graphic design, I'm doing it through vision work. Like, they share with me what their vision is. They have no idea how to put it into words. But because I read energy, I tap into the energy of them. And then one of the other hats I wear is I'm a copywriter and an editor. I'm a published author. So I show up for the epics, whether they're in corporate America or they're a solo business owner or they're an entrepreneur that's just passionate and has no idea how to get their message out. Or if it is Sally or Joe on the street that is wanting to heal from their abusive life, I show up for them and I be the phoenix. I be that space of the transformation. So I got really clear the other day that wherever I am and whatever hat I'm wearing at the time, the people that I am interacting with are epic, even if they haven't come to understand that for themselves. They haven't come to recognize it. The empath.
Very cool.
Yeah, the empaths usually know that they're empaths because they're miserable and they're in pain and they feel so much. But the creatives and the intuitives often don't know that they are, because it's something that they've always done their whole life and they haven't been able to put it into words.
What's the most common problem you see with all these different people? Is there a common, and maybe I'm using the wrong language. Maybe it's not a problem. Maybe what we think is a problem is not really a problem. It's really an opportunity. But is there a common thread that, or maybe it's an obstacle? What is the biggest obstacle that you help people to overcome to get them that transformation?
I hear a lot of things like I'm lost and I'm confused or I'm stuck. I can't make decisions. For the empaths, I hear, I'm exhausted, I'm overwhelmed, I'm in pain. And the number one thing that, if I boil it all down to, the number one thing is they are not clear on what is theirs and what is everyone else's. No matter whether they're an empath, a psychic, an intuitive, or a creative, they're in overwhelm because they are sensitive to everything that's going on in this world. So the empaths feel it and sense it, and the psychics see it and hear it, and the intuitives just know it, but they don't know how they know it. And then the creatives are experiencing it. The creatives are all about, how do I experience this world, and how do I create experiences for other people, and how do I express what I'm experiencing? And so they're in this very internal process. All of these gifts are very internal. And as they're absorbing the world around them, they don't realize that they're absorbing the world around them. And so they're weighed down by everybody else's stuff, and they're overwhelmed. So the number one thing that they need to get to is clarity. How do I be who I am here to be clearly in full power?
Interesting. Yeah. I could see that. I could see where that issue is something that's kind of universal. Mm-hmm. And one reason we're so overwhelmed is we're taking on responsibility for things that aren't our responsibility, or we're trying to control other people. And it's hard enough to control ourselves, much less try to control other people that we don't have control over. Mm-hmm. So there's quite a bit of taking on more than what we should. So how can someone begin to see some immediate improvement in this area? What do you have? I don't know, like a 1, 2, 3 step process, or maybe it's not that simple, but how can we get out of that negative overwhelm, stress, confusion, and find the clarity that we need? Is it something that we can practice?
Absolutely. I am all about providing skills and tools so that when an epic sensitive leaves my space, they can function at the highest level possible on their own. My goal is to empower them and awaken them so that they can move forward. And the very first place that I start always, and I'm going to invite you to do this with me, Ralph, because this is the number one thing.
Wait a minute. Now, this might be I'm not going to start floating up off the floor or anything, am I?
Well, you just might. No, I'm all about one of the things that I love about the work I do, and I'll get back to the number one thing we can do, but one of the things I love is I've noticed that epics have a tendency to split themselves between being human and being divine, being a human and a soul. And they're either pathetically human and having a horrible time on this planet, or they're fully enlightened and not at all aware that they're a human. And so they're like floating about, having no idea that they're creating all sorts of human messes because everything's love and light where they are. Or they're so heavy and so weighted by the crap of this world that they have no idea that they actually have divine energy in them because they've lost track of it. And I am a space where the divine and the human intersects. And that's what I provide for my epic sensitive people that I work with, is how do you be divine and human at the same time? Because I believe that's why we're here. I believe we're here to wake up that divine self in conjunction with our human self and find harmony in that relationship. So part of the reason why I start with this first step is because it is grounding. We are divine beings having this human experience. And if we tap into this magnificent vehicle that is our human body and connect to the earth in a grounding way, while still being a free, full light energy being at the same time, then we're fully empowered and we're limitless. We're fully empowered. So the one thing that I've noticed over the last 20 years is epic sensitives have a tendency to avoid this step that I'm going to teach you because it's scary. And so
okay.
You're like, oh, what is it? Okay, so are you ready? Here.
Should I be scared?
Do you have your seatbelt on?
Yeah.
So here it is. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Inhale. Take a deep breath. And now exhale. When you choose to inhale consciously and pay attention to that, and then exhale consciously, I imagine that you, Ralph, can feel how it actually shifted the space from that high vibration energy I was in into the calm and actual center of us. Mm-hmm. And what I've noticed over the years is when we're born, wherever we're born, whether it's in a hospital or in a pool or it's at home, everybody in the room is waiting for us to take a breath. And if that baby can't breathe on its own, it's an emergency situation. And in the hospital, they get thrown onto machines so that they can breathe. And because it is our life, that first breath, mm-hmm. we inhale. And then usually it's followed by a very boisterous scream. Wah! And then and then as we're getting ready to leave this plane, as we're facing death, we leave on an exhale. So we literally sigh. And the last thing we do on this planet is exhale. And often... Interesting.
Now that is something I have not heard before, but that makes total sense. You're exactly right.
Yeah. And, being in the space because I am the Phoenix, I do a lot of death transition work. And being in the space of somebody that is actually physically parting this world. In that moment when they die and their physical vehicle goes to permanent rest, and whatever their eternal aspect of them is, whatever you believe about that, depart, the body actually sinks into whatever surface it's sitting or laying upon at that time, and everything compresses on a sigh, and there will actually be an audible as the last breath mm-hmm. leaves. And for epic sensitives, that inhale before they scream after birth and that sighing exhale are the only two breaths they take. When we're in fight and flight, when we're in that fear base, then our breath is really high in our chest and it's very shallow because our body is focused on survival. Epic sensitives come into this world and many of them are so immediately bombarded with so much sensory overload that they stop breathing in that moment and do only the shallowest of breath. More often than not, when I'm sitting in front of an epic sensitive and I say, "Are you breathing?" they'll actually go, "Oh," as if they weren't, and they usually aren't. So breath is so powerful because it is our life. Life is movement. Breath is movement. Life and breath and movement is how humans exist in this plane. So when we choose to breathe, when we choose to consciously inhale and consciously exhale, it does a whole lot of stuff. It clears our mind. It brings our energy back into the center of who we are so that we're actually empowered and here fully to make decisions for what wants to happen next.
I like it. That's simple and that's practical and that's something that anybody can do anywhere, anytime, absolutely. Right where they are and start to have some peace and some relaxation. Very cool. So what are you working on right now that has got you really excited that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Oh, I'm super excited. I've been inspired to put together a new program that I'm calling the Epic Revolution. And I played around with the word revolution and spelled it REVEL, lution. So it's revolutionary revelry. So we are going to be reclaiming our voices. And how do we heal from abuse through play? And how do we find clarity by doing things that we normally say no to? And how do we find our yes? And how do we find our no? And what is our purpose? And how do we embrace our epic nature as a blessing rather than a curse? Because for most of their lives, epic sensitives have felt the weight of their gifts and have felt cursed, and they felt like outcasts. Often I hear, man, I feel like an alien on this planet, or Everybody else here are the aliens. I'm the only normal one. So the epic revolution is, how do I shift out of that?
That's really that's how it manifests for me anyway.
Yeah.
That sounds like, that's something I say all the time.
Well, and looking into the bit of your life that I've looked at online, you're powerfully creative yourself. So I imagine there's been times that you've been looking around going, what are these people doing? They're just, what is happening?
Yeah. All the time. Yeah. Well, that sounds really cool. So, you've got some interesting ideas and an interesting turns of phrase there, like revolution and revelry. That's really inspired. I like the way you think, and I like the way you talk. How can our listeners find out more about you and the products and services that you have to offer?
Oh, well, there are two ways that I would love for you to reach out to me. You can go to my website, which is angiemillgate.com. That's ANGIEMILLGATE.com. And if after you go there, you're like, oh man, I want to get on the phone with this woman and find out really who she is and how I fit into the picture of being an epic sensitive, you can set up a time with me by going to my calendar at connectwiththephoenix.com. And that will give you an opportunity to spend 30 minutes with me on the phone, and I just get to know you, and we can see if we can work together. And I
very cool.
Totally would welcome you reaching out to me. I love interacting with humans.
Very neat. Okay. Well, that's good. We've got just maybe a minute left. Any final thoughts or words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our listeners as we wrap up this very powerful interview?
Thank you, Ralph. One of the things that I really love and I want to leave with all of you is the reminder that you truly are here for a purpose, and every single thing you choose creates the future that you will be living, and it creates the future that all of us will be living. So we have the power to change our experience here on this planet by shifting the way we choose, shifting the way we interact, shifting the way we breathe. Just that simple exercise that I did just a few moments ago with inhaling and exhaling is an opportunity to shift yourself. And as Carl Jung said, your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. He who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakens. So I invite you to take a big breath, inhale and exhale, and be willing to go inside and find those nuggets that are hiding there in the dark, because that's where your power is.
Excellent. Excellent. Words of wisdom from Angie K. Millgate, known as the Phoenix. She is the leader of the Epic Sensitives movement. She is a perceptive energy healer who supports those who are ready and willing to release themselves from victimhood. You can find out more by going to her website at angiemillgate.com. Angie, thanks so much for being on Rebelpreneur Radio today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Ralph. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
You've been listening to Rebelpreneur Radio with Ralph Brogden. Download the show notes and much more at ralphbrogden.com.